Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thanks everyone for attending. My name my name is Thad White. I am in the technical marketing department at BMC Software for TrueSight Operations Management. This webinar is part of a series of best practices webinars. You can find information on future webinars as well as past recordings on communities if you just search for TrueSight best practices webinars. As part of the webinar, as we're going through it, if you have questions, please use the Q&A window, and someone from the panelists will answer it for you, or we will stop at the end of the presentation and go through some of the questions together. The topic for today is filtering and refining patrol agent data collection in TrueSight Operations Management. Your speaker is going to be Mike Ashall. He's in our customer engineering department at BMC Software. Mike, you can go ahead and take it away. By the way,
hi everybody. Yes,
Mike, I'm sorry. Before we go, I'm having trouble muting everyone at the same time. So please, if you're not Mike or myself, please go on mute, and we'll try and take care of it that way. Okay, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yeah, if there's any questions at the end of it, we'll have a question and answer at the end of it. So yes, hello everybody. Yes, I'm Mike Ashall. I work in the R&D organisation of the BMC TrueSight Operations Management. Today I'm just going to go through a newish feature which was introduced into the product around how do we stream, or how do we send event data to the TrueSight platform. And so what I will just do today is I'll just give you a short presentation, and then I'll go into a demonstration. A version, what BMC came across was customers who were looking to do different types of data information being sent to TrueSight. Some customers wanted event data only. Some customers wanted streaming and event. Some customers actually said, "Look, we don't want any data at all being presented into the TrueSight environment." And the important thing about this is actually when we start looking at the number of attributes and the number of monitored instances, it does affect scalability. So the important feature, what we've introduced, is around the filtering. And within the UI, as you can see in here, this is the earlier version of the UI, where effectively we just listed effectively four options. Then when we moved into version 11.301, we actually introduced we actually renamed some of the well, actually all of them, and we introduced a new feature which was deactivate agent collection. Okay, so it's important and we don't believe there'll be any more changes to the UI at this stage, but customers were asking us just to make it a bit clearer to understand what happens if we actually send data, if we send events, if we just want to view patrol agent history, how do we do that? And if we just don't want the data to appear at all, how do we do that as well? So we introduced this additional feature at 11.301. Okay. And what I'll just do now is I will jump into a demonstration, and then we'll come back onto the environment. So today, what I'm just going to demonstrate, I have a Windows server here. I've just actually renamed it just to make it easier for everybody. And under this, I'm just doing just basic monitoring. And what you'll see in here is some information with streaming, etc. Okay. Now what you'll see is things like there's some elements not appearing here at the moment. Okay, and I'll explain to you that as you go forward. Okay. So if we just look at the configuration of what we're doing with this particular server at the moment, if I just show you this particular policy, you'll see exactly what I'm actually doing on this. So as you can see, we're doing Windows Server monitoring. We're doing self monitoring on this particular agent. Okay, and I'm just matching this one agent at this stage, but obviously this filter could be applied into many servers. Okay, so what you see here at this present stage, what I've actually done is I've actually disabled the physical disk on this particular server. Okay, and also what I've actually done is I've actually just said I want to remove all processor information with the exception of total. Okay, and what I'm going to just do now, and I'll just set up another filter on here just to show you the behaviour of what actually happens. And it's important to understand the way in which this works. Okay. So what I'm going to do in here is I'm just going to go down to, just as an example, just to do, and let me just do this, sorry, I missed it. And I'm going to just show you, I'm just going to go down to instant level. I'm going to just basically say, okay, I'm going to get, I'm just going to do a regular expression, and I'm just going to say, effectively, agent side collection only. Okay, and it's important this is you understand what actually happens in this stage. Okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to save that and commit that to the agent, and then what the agent will then start to update. Okay. So why that's going through the collection cycle. What I wanted to show you here is that you'll see this in this particular configuration now. The memory will be marked for deletion. Okay, all right. And what I've got in here is I've actually got the TSIM which sits underneath that presentation server. And at some stage you'll see what will happen is we'll start to effectively get marked for deletion. Okay. So we have different ways of actually controlling the data going into TrueSight. Now, I know that, and as you can see now, the server is now marked for deletion. Sorry, not the server. The memory is now marked for deletion. Okay, so the agent is still collecting the information. But we stopped collecting information. Is now marked for deletion, which is on which will, in this particular case will be 7 days. Okay, so. And what I'll just do is I'll just refresh this, and you'll see that has now been passed through into TrueSight. And what will happen now? This will then just stop collecting. Okay, and then the system will then clean that up, and it will then disappear completely out of the system. Okay. Now, what we actually see also is if I just show you something else is that we can do a number of different ways of configuring, and I can change that accordingly into whichever way I want. But what I want to just to show you as an example, as we're just doing this now. What I want to do is show you this. This is an example of what the behavior of what happens in different scenarios. So what we've just done there, we've actually taken the memory out, and the memory will particularly disappear. It's probably not a good example, but I just wanted to show you. It's just an easy one to show to people, and you can see the data is off. Okay. Now, what you'll notice just below that, and we'll go back to the filter in a moment. But what you'll see in TSIM in this particular view is what I've actually said in the TSIM filtering is actually I want to stop the collection at the patrol agent side. Okay. However, the way the product works today is that TSIM still knows that the agent has got that information held within its namespace. Okay, but you notice above that the TSPS does not have the actual physical disk. Okay, and that's because the logic that we built some new logic into the presentation server to make it easier for customers, and the intention of is always been to elevate the information and just use the TSIM as an analytical engine rather than the user interface. So when we look at TSIM, you'll see two different views, and it is important to note that. Okay. Now Now, as I said, what I've actually did when I'll go back to the policy in a moment, in this particular case, I said stop patrol agent collecting. Okay. Now, what you'll see on the Patrol Classic console is actually, you can see on the left-hand side under Networks, Page Files, and then as we go further down, you'll see physical disks. Okay, but what you'll see is the physical disk is no longer no longer collecting on the agent. Okay, but because the instance is still available in the application class, TSIM knows about it. Okay, so some questions will come about. Well, why does that look like that? Effectively, this is the reason why it is. And we may get some questions towards the end of this webinar, anyway. But it's important to understand that the different configurations of what you'll actually see. So as I say, when you can see in here, this is now marked for deletion. Okay, and I'll just go back to infrastructure policies just to show you that particular example of what I've done on this particular physical disks. Okay, so you can see in here what I've said is on the physical disks. In this particular case, I've said effectively deactivate agent sides, and I've done that at attribute level for this particular parameter. And then if I look at the physical disk again here, and remember this is all the physical disk performance, I've actually just effectively said deactivate agent side. So you will probably ask some questions now and around, well, why does the information appear to be in TSIM when it's not there? Effectively, that's the reason is that when we deactivate the collection, we do not destroy the instance. Okay, and this example in here is, again, we're just using regular expressions to effectively just disable. So a lot of the time customers just want total, they don't want CPU 0 or 1, etc. And you can actually build up your regex within this UI at this stage. But so you hopefully today will see that you can actually manipulate the data accordingly, whichever comes into which comes into TrueSight. Okay. Now, one of the things that we have been seeing is that, and I've seen this on the forums as well, is, well, can we make sure that the number of attributes and number of monitor instances that actually is reported via the TSIM is providing us correct information? So we have situations where customers may be doing, as an example, 90% event management, and they're using 10% performance data. And again, we have different situations. Some customers doing 90-20. They're doing different scenarios. And one of the things we're looking at as we go forward into the 11.302, is we're looking at ways in which we can improve the performance diagnostic page and the ability to count the correct number of attributes which are streaming data and those which are sending only event data. And we're looking at ways in which we can provide that information back to customers, because therefore when you look at your PDP report today, sometimes you'll say, well, actually I've just streamed that parameter and that parameter still appears in TSIM. And as you can see in what I've just shown you today, effectively that is the reason, is that TSIM hasn't got the intelligence to know that monitor instance at this stage is actually not sending any data. It still exists. The app classes still exists, and therefore we count it within the report. Now there are ways in which we can actually clean that up, but actually what we want to do is provide that information to customers directly and from within the tool. So we're looking to try and get an enhancement, and I say, look, at the moment we're working through that. So we can't make any promises at this stage, but hopefully my request to as part of the Platinum Engineering team is to let's try and provide information correctly back to the customer so they can effectively understand exactly what is going on within their environment. Okay. So with that, we can certainly. I don't know if there's any questions in the chat window, but as I said to you, just as a reference in here, you can see this physical disk at this stage. You can see actually there's no graph. Okay, so that's because the patrol agent has been deactivated at this stage, at the patrol agent stage. So you can see there's no graph, okay? And in this particular case, we've actually said just stop the collection, and that is now going to be marked for deletion. And memory will disappear in 7 days. And the best way to try and, especially when you're doing your large deployments, is a typical example is we see customers just wanting just to get an event only for availability metrics. So yeah, 0, 0, 1. Then they just want to see the effective event when that raises. Okay. So as I say, we've got this new feature. The new feature does rely on the later patrol agents because of the data streaming. But as you go up once you get onto the 11.3 patrol agent, then effectively you then have the ability to do the different filtering options. Okay. So I'd say just to show you an example, just to show you what I've got set up in here, effectively agent side collection and deactivate agent side. Okay, and you do get different views from within this. And I'm not going to show how to set up an event, but effectively it's straightforward. Again, you can click on here. You can say, okay, well actually I want to do it in attribute level. Okay, you might turn around and say, well, actually, I may as well show it because it's probably easier for me to show it for you. Let me just get an example where we can show something. Okay. Let me. So again, I will just do. And the other thing to note is if you actually create a filter. That is actually the same as say, for instance, you've actually created a filter which says deactivate agent side for memory, and then you go on and change and actually create a new policy for the same monitor type. The last one will take precedence and it will delete your old one. Okay. And so you don't have to go and delete something. I can just go in here, for instance, and I'll just show you this, and I can just say, okay, well actually I'm just going to say all, and I can just say, and I'll just say send events only, and the system will work out what it will do, and effectively I can then just work out what I need to do. So if I just do this at attribute level, I believe we should get the save, and the system will come up and say filtering on one where actually specific already exists. Do you want to overwrite it? And this, so you don't have to go in and delete something. The system will effectively take the last one as truth. Okay. So we're happy to open up the lines for any questions. It's a straightforward piece of, straightforward new UI which we've introduced, but there is a difference between going from 11 to 11.3, but we try to make it a lot easier for customers. So I don't know if we've got any Q&A questions at this stage in the chat window, or anybody wants to ask questions.
Yeah, Mike. So actually, Todd had answered the question that was coming in. Todd, do you want to just answer that audibly?
Yes. The question came up about how to not reflect services as quote-unquote data monitored instances, but you were still interested in whatever events, right? Service up, service down. So that's an example of an instance level filter for us to be able to go in and create an instance that says, do I want to, as well as the associated data. So when you think of implementing filtering, think of what you want to achieve. Do I want those instances to be there or not be there? And I can set an instance level filter to structure instance behavior. Likewise, as Mike brought up in his conversation in 11.3, we've added the ability to regulate attributes kind of similar, and I can
Look, hang on, Todd. You're Todd.
Yep.
You were starting to warble out a little bit. Back up about 5 seconds or so.
Is that any better?
Yeah, you're fine now.
Yeah.
Yeah. So think of scope. When you create filters, you're deciding how do I want to treat the instances. Think a service, an individual service, whether I want it to present itself for data in TrueSight. I can manage things at the instance level, or within an instance or instances of an app class, I can now control attribute behavior. If I'm controlling the attributes, I'm still presenting the instances, unless in some cases I choose to not present any attributes. But we gave you in 11.3 the granularity to tell us which parameters you care about or not care about streaming.
Is that okay? So this was just a server where we've actually set up that effective filter just to send events just from services, Windows service. Okay. So I'm looking at the chat. Is there any chat window, or so I'm just? Is there any? If anybody's got any questions, then please just we're. Just ask the question in this forum. We're more than welcome to. You're more than welcome to join in. If you don't be shy, we're all we can help you. If you get any questions after this, then you can then contact myself. It's Michael_Ashall or Mike_Ashall at BMC.com or Todd_Brady at BMC.com. You'll see us on the communities anyway, and we'll be in the we're actually available to answer any questions directly.
Looks like we have another question that came in. Can we have event only while still doing agent side collection only? Example is monitoring all Windows services on Patrol Agent without creating tons of instances in TSIM, but still send service down events to TSIM.
Yeah, the example that Mike has up on the screen is an example of an instance level filter that still allow me to get all the events related to Windows services without incurring the instances and attribute counts within TrueSight. So Mike, if you view that or edit that Windows service filter rule, you can see how it's structured.
Yeah.
So I told.
So I think one of the.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry. So just as I think I know where some of the questions come from, and we see this as one Todd you back me up, is that sometimes we've had situations where, so for instance, if you want to see the data, even though you're not collecting performance data into TrueSight, and you still want to go and view that historical performance data, which is created by the Patrol Agent and is stored in the Patrol Agent history file, and you want to view that from your TrueSight central architecture, then the instance and attribute get created, because in that way, when you go into be able to graph and pull the data back from the history file from the Patrol Agent, the TSOM environment needs to know how to get that. So if you ever get to a situation where where you want to view data, then effectively the attribute gets created. Now, what we have also seen customers as well saying, well, actually, we would like the option of basically not having an attribute created for the event, but actually we would like to see the last 10 data points. So if a process or a service is flipping, rather than go in and open a console and get that, is there a way of actually, via the event, of actually recording the last, say, 10 or 20 data points? So if a service is going up or down, up or down, up or down, then effectively as soon as the event gets raised, the event gets the detail relating to all the last, say, 10 data collection points, and all of them events get created. Sorry, all that information gets created in a single event. So therefore, it then negates the idea that you need to then go back onto and go into the UI and view it. So we have different ways of manipulating the view of the environment. But if you want to pull back history data from a patrol agent, then the TSOM needs to know about that, and an attribute gets generated.
Yeah, and I would just augment that to say that out of the box, we even have a macro for the event content to do, as Mike mentioned, include data points, right? So you could, within the context of an event, understand how that service looked the last 10 times we checked it, as an example. And you could apply that to any data metric that we have a macro to go grab the last 10 data points and put it in a slot in the event.
Yeah.
We have another question.
So
I'm sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Go ahead. No, you can carry on. No.
So the question about can we make this a global level filter, right, to only allow services, processes, and log file stuff, right? So can you make these global, these filters?
So the short answer is yes. They're applied to the agent population based on agent selection criteria. There's a lot of use cases where I might have a policy that applies to all agents out there running on Windows and 3181. So it's driven by the precedence and the scope agent selection criteria of the policy. So if it's something you want to enforce on all your agents that operate under Windows, then giving it a low precedence number and considering an agent standard as an example, put it in your standard Windows policy, or put it in a policy in which the precedence number would dictate it, override other policies that might try to treat services under a different behavior.
And in this particular case, this would apply because this is basically it's being applied to all Windows. Okay, it's on the Patrol Agent 3181, but actually this would go out and apply these filtering globally to anything which match that agent selection criteria.
I have another question. So do the attributes that remain at the patrol agent collection only count towards the attribute count within the diagnostic report?
At the moment they do, and one of the things. So as I showed before, within this situation, these attributes are actually getting created in TrueSight today. So if you remember what I showed earlier, you can see here this attribute got created. Okay, this monitored instance got created, but actually we're not collecting anything. So as I said earlier, what we're trying to do is even if they do get created, now they may just be events only, or they may not be doing anything. Can we somehow within the system, and we're looking at this and we think we're making some good strides. We want to be able to say, like, we have 1.1 million attributes. Out of that 1 million attributes, only 50% of them are actually sending performance data. And therefore, it should allow us to provide better granularity in sizing and scalability of a customer's environment, rather than at the moment it's not as granular as we would like.
And so does the 1.7 million maximum count, even though 20% of attributes may be patrol agent collection only?
So the way the sizing works at the moment, we size up to sending performance data for up to the maximum what we publish today. Okay. So what we've been looking at is I go back to the earlier statement, is we're looking at a situation where some customers may be 60-40. We're looking at customers about 80-20, and trying to work out, well, what would a server need to be in that particular instance. So because at the moment it isn't granular enough to, and TSIM can't differentiate between is a monitored instance with an attribute there for the purposes of event only, and that event may never come, and it might come once a year, where your performance data is actually streaming every minute, and it's coming into TrueSight. So we're trying to get that granularity into the 11.302 stream. And we're working very hard to try and do that, because we know when we decided to do this, we wanted to show the customers the ability, like how to filter, but I knew that questions would be asked around the size and scalability, and how we can make sure that an attribute is actually sending data, or just an event data that may only occur once in a blue moon.
Any other questions? Please type them in the Q&A.
Okay.
I don't see anything else. Mike, Todd, do you have anything to add before we close?
No, I think we're good.
No, thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you, Mike and Todd, for answering questions. We really appreciate it. And thank you, everyone, for taking time out of your day to attend. We will have this recording as well as Mike's presentation out on the community's event page before very long. Again, if you want to see any of the former best practices webinars, they can be found on the community's event page as well as the future events coming up. Thank you, everyone, for attending.